The next article I wanted to look at is titled Five Things We Learned from Anthony Fauci's Emails. This is written June 3rd by Laurel Wamsley on NPR.org. Now, in case you guys didn't know, Anthony Fauci's emails were leaked. So what did we learn from them? That's what I was wondering. Is it even a big deal? Like, what did they have to say? Was it some big conspiracy that was blown wide open or something? Let's find out. Let's read this. For many Americans, Dr. Anthony Fauci quickly became the face of trust and reason against the coronavirus pandemic. He was a reliable man of science, while the Trump White House often played politics in its decision-making. Fauci, the 80-year-old director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, was seemingly everywhere as the pandemic emerged, appearing at White House coronavirus task force briefings and doing interviews with an enormous range of media outlets, answering questions basic and complex as the dangerous new virus wreaked havoc on the US and the world. Yeah, Fauci actually appeared on like a few YouTube channels. He was on the Try Guys, I think. The Try Guy. I don't know anything about that YouTube channel, but I think I saw him on there. And I've heard of a couple of the people that are on it. He was also on Philip DeFranco, I think, interestingly enough. I was impressed by the fact that the guy saw value in YouTube. A lot of mainstream people like this don't see value in YouTube and just fucking hate people who are YouTubers. You know, they just have no respect or interest in it. But not Fauci. He seemed to like it just fine. Now a fresh window into Fauci's life and work has opened as thousands of pages of Fauci's work emails from the early months of the pandemic have been released to BuzzFeed and the Washington Post via Freedom of Information Act requests. BuzzFeed has posted its entire trove here for public perusal. These are some things that we found as we poured through the archive. Something to make note of here. The question originally was there anything scandalous in Fauci's emails? The answer is no. There wasn't. But I felt I needed to talk about it anyways because, people will come in and say, oh, you're not talking about this. Why don't you talk about this? Such a big deal. It's a scandal. It's not a scandal. There's nothing scandalous to be found in Fauci's emails. I'm sure somebody could come along, some extremist, and pick out something and twist it out of proportion to make him seem like a monster or something. You could do that with literally anybody. But there's nothing really scandalous in his emails. Let's keep reading. Americans wrote to Fauci with very specific questions about what to do. Fauci received an email from someone planning a scientific conference scheduled for July 2020 in Tampa, Florida. Hey, I used to live in Tampa. The person wrote to Fauci asking for a prediction of what the effects of the virus would be then. There's no way of knowing for sure. I would wait until May to see what the dynamics of the outbreak are globally and make your decision then, whether or not to cancel, Fauci replied. One woman wanted to know whether someone who'd been vaccinated against pneumonia would have any protection against COVID-19. I know you must be completely busy and inundated with people wanting your time. I apologize. I have nothing to offer in return and completely understand if you don't have the time to answer, she wrote. Fauci replied an hour later, laying out distinctions between pure viral pneumonia and bacterial pneumonia and suggested she get the pneumonia vaccine if she's over 65. The woman was stunned to receive a response from the nation's top infectious disease expert. Oh my God, she wrote, I honestly never expected you to reply, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so generous. A National Institute of Health colleague wrote to Fauci on March 4th to ask whether the weekend's religious services should be canceled at a house of worship after a coronavirus case was apparently identified. You should counsel the rabbi to cancel the services, Fauci replied. Solid advice. I'm glad that people were genuinely asking this stuff, and I'm glad Fauci was there to give genuine answers, too. Jesus Christ, guys. Do you guys realize we just came out of a worldwide pandemic? Holy fucking shit, man. Imagine that shit. We came out the other side alive. Oh, I mean, we're not even completely out yet. We see light at the end of the tunnel, but Jesus Christ, man. It still blows my fucking mind that we just spent the last year locked down, right, socially distanced from each other, in hiding, getting vaccinated, and staring at the news day in and day out, waiting for new information to come out. Still blows my fucking mind. Let's keep reading. He pushed back on the suggestion that the Trump White House was muzzling him. On March 8th, 2020, AIDS activist and Yale University epidemiologist Greg Gonsalves emailed Fauci, along with Robert Redfield, then the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, NIH Director Francis Collins, Alex Azar, then the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and others. Gonsalves wrote, "There are thousands of people waiting for advice from our federal government on broader social distancing measures in light of the fact that our failure in early testing and surveillance means the coronavirus is likely already spreading in our communities. All we see is genuflection in word and deed from most of you to a White House that wants this all to magically go away," he went on. Fauci replied a few hours later, "Greg, I'm surprised that you included me in your note. I genuflect to no one but science and always speak my mind when it comes to public health. I've consistently corrected misstatements by others and will continue to do so." Fauci was in a tough situation. Fauci was in a situation where if he said the wrong thing, if he said something that Trump didn't like, Trump would have, cut the guy out completely. I don't know if he could have fired him or not. I'm not sure. But Trump certainly would have at least tried to stop including him in press briefings. And I'm guessing that's probably why he brought in Dr. Birx at the time, because he was trying to kind of phase Fauci out. Or at the very least, he wanted to have a second option if Fauci said something he didn't like. So the fact that Fauci was delicately balancing on this fence, trying to do the best he could to help people around him, and also trying to stay on Trump's good side, for lack of a better phrase, is really very impressive. I'm honestly very impressed with the guy. Here's the next subheading. Fauci gets a ton of email, and he replies to a surprising amount of it. The guy is fucking dedicated, dude. The guy worked 18, 20 hours a day for a while there. Can you imagine that? Working that fucking much, getting 4 to 6 hours of sleep a night, and that's it. He was uncomfortable with his sudden celebrity. On March 31st, 2020, the chief of staff for Fauci's office emailed him an article from the Post that carried the headline, "Fauci socks, Fauci donuts, Fauci fan art. The coronavirus expert attracts a cult following." Wasn't he listed as sexiest man of the year at one point too, or something? Or he was in the running for sexiest man of the year, something like that. Fauci replied, "Truly surrealistic. Hopefully this all stops soon. It is not at all pleasant, that is for sure," Fauci added. But he found some upsides in fame too. Fauci wasn't above taking the occasional perk of sudden fame, at least as a baseball fan. A booking agent reached out to Fauci on behalf of Washington Nationals first baseman Ryan Zimmerman about appearing for a Q&A on the ballplayer's Facebook page. An NIH communications officer replied, "As a huge Nats fan, Dr. Fauci very much wants to do this chat with Ryan Zimmerman." After arranging the interview, the NIH staffer wrote to Fauci, "P.S. What do you want to bet you get invited to throw a first pitch next year?" "I was thinking the very same thing," Fauci replied. Indeed, Fauci took the mound for opening day in July 2020 in a red Nats mask and made the first pitch. It wasn't a great throw. Oh, fascinating. Perhaps he was tired from dealing with his overstuffed email inbox, among the many, many other things on his plate at the time. I don't know if you guys remember this, but at that time, Trump said that he was invited to pitch too, and he turned them down. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that at all. I need some evidence to buy that. I pretty much need evidence to believe anything out of Trump's mouth at this point. But it seems like Trump's MO to try to one-up people around him and, take the fame away from them. I bet it ate him up inside that Fauci got Sexiest Man of the Year nomination. So that's what happened with Fauci's emails. Was there a scandal in there? No, not really. There wasn't anything scandalous. It was just normal stuff. But you can bet that Trump cultists are going to try to turn it into something more.